Their faces so contorted by hatred that for a moment you think it's Halloween come early. The traditional enemies. The journalist said, "Would you mind telling me who the traditional enemies are, Mr. Irving? Who do you mean by this phrase?" He asked me a question which a lot of journalists are asking, and they say, "Mr. Irving, around the world you've been using this phrase to describe certain people. You call them your traditional enemies. Our traditional enemies. We know who they are. Traditional enemies of the truth, as I also say." I didn't lay my head on the block for him. I just said, well, every now and then, every 3 or 4 or 5 months, I'm woken up at 3 in the morning by the sound of heavy trucks driving up outside my apartment in Grosvenor Square in London, and I can hear steel barricades going up around my apartment, and I know it's going to be another of those days. You know, the interlocking steel riot barricades that the police now use. And every 3 or 4 months it's time for another massive demonstration against David Irving, because I'm so convenient, I'm right in the center of the English capital. And then I look out of the window about lunchtime, and there they are, the mob, the scum, this hoi polloi, the excrement of the earth, standing on the other side of the barricades with their thick lips and their hooked noses and their pebbled glasses. It's a useful phrase because for 50 or 100 years now they have used the same traditional means to try to gag free speech. They have been on their lofty pedestal that they were never ever going to step down off that pedestal and debate it with ordinary historians the likes of myself. But now they have been forced. They've not just climbed down from the pedestal decently, they have been toppled from the pedestal by sheer brute force of facts and historical evidence and documentation. There is such a network of enormously influential, self-appointed people, this influential international network around the world, which has managed to inveigle itself into a position where it is in a position to protect what it perceives as its global financial interests. And if I'd heard myself saying this 3 or 4 years ago, I would have thought, David Irving, you have finally flipped. You have finally toppled into this abyss which is otherwise peopled only by anti-Semites and otherwise incorrigible people. But having been at the sharp end of a campaign waged by these people over the last 4 or 5 years, I realize that it isn't coincidence that these people around the world, my traditional enemies, use precisely the same phrases against me, that they are organized on an international scale, that they instantly step out of the woodwork and use precisely the same legal techniques and tactics and ploys to try to silence any criticism or debate or free speech. It wasn't purely chance that when I stepped into the courtroom in Vancouver on the afternoon of October the 28th, after I'd made my speech in Victoria, Vancouver Island, on the subject of freedom of speech, and I'd been arrested immediately, ironically. There I am being led off by the Canadian RCMP in handcuffs for having dared to open my mouth. And in that courtroom in Vancouver, I discovered that this organization is indeed international, because one of the documents that was produced by the prosecution in that courtroom on the afternoon of October the 28th was in fact a fax document transmitted from around the world from a location whose identity I knew purely by chance, because at the top of the fax document was 6 letters of the alphabet, SAJBOD, South African Jewish Board of Deputies. I happen to know those initials, this acronym. The South African Jewish Board of Deputies, within seconds of learning that I was in a prison cell in Vancouver, faxed documents around to their pals in Vancouver to ensure that the Crown Prosecution Service had the documents they felt they might need in case I put up a defense. That is how fast they operate. And yet I'm glad to be able to report, ladies and gentlemen, in the course of this evening's talk, that we have achieved significant victories against these people in our fight for, in my international campaign, for real history, in fact.